Welcome to the Midweek Tease with me, Adele Onyango, where I share some random and not too random thoughts on things. And in this episode, let's talk about boundaries, but specifically boundaries with family and close friends, because those can be very, very tricky. So this episode is for you if you've ever struggled to set boundaries with the people closest to you. I know firsthand how complicated it can feel. It's one thing to say no at work or to an acquaintance, but it's a completely different challenge when it's your mom or your sibling or your best friend. The guilt is just heavier for sure. And also, I think even for me, further than guilt, there's the fear of conflict, the fear that you could end up losing this person who you love and care for. I don't know if I'm alone, but my mind would normally spiral into the worst case scenario. And then what I would end up doing is just, people pleasing. And let's also not forget that there's also cultural expectations when you're dealing with family or older family members. It's frowned upon to say no. It's frowned upon to prioritize your feelings, especially when your desires or your feelings are very different from what is expected, right? Or it's frowned upon not to show up for certain things, right? So that can add like a whole other layer. It's just hectic. But I always say some of the most impactful work I've done on myself is boundary work, building healthy boundaries, including those with family and with close friends. And I remember, and I've talked about it here on the podcast, one year where I went to therapy every week, every Thursday. I will never forget, every Thursday for a whole year. And some of the sessions were grilling. I remember my therapist's office is in CBD, the heart of Nairobi, capital of Kenya. And sometimes it would be a hectic session and I would leave, and I always had in my car a huge pair of sunglasses that I would carry specifically on therapy Thursdays because I would be crying the whole drive home, because some sessions would just be so heavy. And I think some of the times we would unpack, where did my people pleasing come from? Why would I overperform in certain relationships? We got there because we're trying to understand who I am and rebuild my sense of self and understand why I was feeling so drained and making decisions that were not made out of thriving, but out of survival, out of trying to figure out who I am, And that's where we found that my people pleasing was being fueled by my lack of boundaries. That was tough. And I remember being very scared about setting boundaries because I had two false beliefs. One, I thought that boundaries meant that I was going to lose the people I love. And two, I just thought having boundaries was very mean, was very mean. And so I was like, this is so uncomfortable. But I remember my therapist, and very many therapists have said this, that boundaries are not about shutting people out. They're about making relationships healthier, making them safer and more sustainable, right? Because without the boundaries, resentment grows. It doesn't matter, my fellow people pleasers, although I've left that ship. It doesn't matter how hard you please others. At the end of the day, there's a resentment that grows within you, which then speaks to that relationship being very unhealthy, right? And as resentment grows in the long run, love without boundaries will often turn into emotional exhaustion. And I just don't want you to participate in that anymore. So let's figure out whether you are lacking boundaries. And here's some signs that psychologists point to, because I did a bit of research for this particular episode. So there are 5 things. The first one is you feel anxious or resentful after interactions with your family or friends. Number 2, you constantly say yes, even when you want to say no. That one was mine. I was present for that one. Number 3, You avoid certain conversations because you fear conflict. I was also very heavily present for that one. Goodness. And you know what? For this third one, I feel like only recently, especially in like my romantic relationship, now is when I can say I have overcome this one. So all of this is like work in progress. It takes time, right? Yeah. Number 4, you feel responsible for other people's emotions. Yeah. Okay, I was also present for that one for a long time. And even now, I've just managed to get out of it in a lot of my very close relationships. I felt like if someone near me was angry, it is my fault. And I would just spiral trying to figure out, what have I done wrong? What do I need to change? And like, what did I last say to them? Maybe I'm too much of this. Like, it was hectic. It was really hectic. And the 5th one is you come away from family gatherings emotionally drained. Now, if any of those 5 points sound familiar, it's really not because you're weak. So I wouldn't want you to sit there thinking something is wrong with me. It's just because like we have been conditioned to prioritize others over ourselves. And now it's time to work towards having a balance, right? We need to rebalance that. And so there are 3 guiding questions that can help you start identifying where exactly a boundary is needed. Because as much as we're saying you're feeling all of these 5 points or 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5, it may not be for each and every relationship with each and every family member or with each and every close friend of yours, right? You now need to zoom in a bit closer. These 3 questions might help. Okay, question number 1, which relationships leave me feeling exhausted instead of supported? It's kidogo heavy, but necessary to answer this question. Question number 2, where am I saying yes out of fear, guilt, or obligation and not out of desire? Hey, I feel like when I was in therapy and just like thinking about especially number 2, I could identify which relationships, and then immediately I started feeling guilt. And I'm going to share about guilt in a bit, but like I immediately started feeling guilt for saying yes out of fear or obligation and not out of desire. Hiya. Number 3, what behaviors am I tolerating because it's family or longtime friends? This one was especially for longtime friends for me. I think for a long time, the fear of being abandoned by friends or people close to me made me tolerate behaviors that I wasn't comfortable with just because I felt like if I speak up about this, I'm going to lose this person. So I'm the one with the problem. I'm the one who's not accommodating. Does that make sense? The type of friendships I had, like deep friendships, I thought it was okay. I had a close friend whose house I'd gone to once. It was because I was surprising them with something, you know? And I'm not saying, that's just like top of mind example. I'm not saying that I need to live in your house, but my goodness. How can I not know where you are? And I remember bringing this up in therapy and my therapist saying, well, that friend has very clear boundaries because for them, they're not comfortable with people, no matter how close, being in their personal space. You are the one who's not showing up for your boundaries and your expectations of friendships. Does that make sense? So anyway, those are the 3 guiding questions to help you start identifying boundaries are needed here, here, and here. Now, I really wanted to give you tools that are going to help you. So before I get into 3 or 4 lessons that I've learned while building healthy boundaries, I wanted to share 3 psychology-backed exercises that you can actually start trying this week. And one of them I actually did in therapy. And it was step 1 in identifying where there are 0 boundaries here. And it's called the circle exercise. So you need to draw 3 circles, one inside the other. So start with a small circle, draw another one outside it, and then another bigger one outside the two circles. I hope that makes sense, right? Now, place people in the circle based on safety, respect, and reciprocity, right? When I did this circle exercise initially, the innerest circle needs to have you and maybe like one other person, but best case scenario is it only has you. I wasn't even in that inner circle, right? I was like at the corner of the paper, nowhere close to either of the three circles. So I'm just going to say that again. Draw a small circle, another circle that's bigger than that small circle, so around it, and then another bigger circle. So the two circles are inside the bigger circle, right? And then look at the people in your life. If it's Jane, who's your best friend, is she in the innermost circle? Is she in the middle circle? Is she in the outer circle? Do that for all the people in your life, right? And then also at the very end, ask yourself, me, where am I? Am I in the outermost circle? Meaning I have zero say about my life. Am I in the innermost circle? Where am I? Once you do this exercise, it'll be so clear where shifts might need to happen for you to protect your peace. The second exercise is to reframe the guilt. And I found this exercise while researching for this episode, but I wish I found it back when I was doing my boundary work, because guilt really ate me. Where? Saying no made me feel so guilty. And those feelings made me feel like I was doing a wrong thing by building these boundaries in the first place. So with this exercise, when you say no and start to feel guilty, write down the positive impact that saying no had. Maybe the positive impact was you rested. Maybe it was you avoided burnout. Maybe it was you preserved your energy. Maybe it was instead of going for that family function, you were able to do your work that was necessary for you to do, or you were able to, clean your house, whatever it is. What is the positive impact that saying no had, right? And over time, you will start to see the guilt as just being part of growth, and not being a deterrent. In fact, one of the things that I love is thinking about saying no as you saying yes to something. So for the example I gave, saying no to the family gathering meant you saying yes to resting. Make sense? Exercise number 3. This one is a simple question that you need to come back to whenever your boundaries are tested. Ask yourself, if this person wasn't family or a close friend, would I allow this behavior? I think this exercise can be a game changer to help you see patterns clearly. I hope these 3 exercises help you. And what I want to leave you with are 5 lessons I learned while building my healthy boundaries. And so the first is on guilt, because that one really showed me dastwe. And I think the guilt you will feel when building boundaries with your family and friends doesn't mean that you should stop or that you're doing something wrong. It simply means you're human. It's a normal feeling, considering that for years, even decades, you have been people-pleasing and overperforming. Those 2 things were so real for me. And so, of course, this shift will be unsettling for you, but you've just got to trust the process. The second thing I learned is that building boundaries is actually a loving gesture, right? So because I love you, I want to arrive in our relationship as my best self. Now, to be my best self, I must have healthy boundaries. And acknowledging this made me see boundaries not as a mean gesture, but an act of love. And by the way, not just love for myself, but love for those who truly matter to me. The third lesson was, your boundaries will mean the evolution of some relationships and even the death of others, and that is okay. There are going to be family and friends who will prefer previous versions of you, and they are allowed to. Some may take longer than you expected to adjust to your boundaries. And some relationships, by the way, will surprise you because they will blossom and bloom because of your boundaries. Whichever way it goes, you must welcome and protect this new version of you. Next lesson, your boundaries aren't alive when you set them. They are alive when you have to affirm them. That is the tricky part. And in those moments, I hope you remember to stand up for this new version of you, to protect her peace, to protect her joy, and to remember that her feelings matter, right? That her feelings finally matter after being abandoned for so many years. And besides, it's fine to disappoint people. They live. The last lesson I learned is to say no often and to say no loudly. You can ask for time to think about things instead of rushing to a yes. You can check in with yourself, figure out how are you feeling, how is your mind, do you have the emotional capacity for this? Because again, you matter. I really hope everything I've shared helps you, my goodness. And if all of this is resonating with you, we're going to be diving deeper into this on the 30th of August in our upcoming wellness talk with my therapist who walked with me during this journey. She's a counseling psychologist. Her name is Faith Guchu. And we're going to be unpacking so many things during this wellness talk that is themed around setting boundaries and healing old wounds within a family context, right? So some of the things we'll talk about are, of course, setting boundaries with your family, healing despite them not apologizing, caring for family without burning out, breaking harmful childhood patterns that show up as an adult. Yay! Turn on that last one. Tricky! And so much more. Our wellness talks are virtual, meaning wherever you are in the world, you can join us and start walking this healing journey with us. And the tickets are only 1,000 shillings. So it's on the 30th of August at 10 a.m. East Africa time. And in the show notes, you can grab your tickets. Tickets are limited because we try and make our wellness talks a bit intimate. So if I were you, I would grab my tickets now and then share this, man. Let's help each other. Let's help each other meet the best versions of who we are now. So share it with the people that you love. And just remember that your peace matters and start practicing it. Start practicing it now. Thanks for listening to the Midweek Tease, a Legally Clueless Africa production. Episodes go out every Wednesday, and you can learn more about us by going to legallycluelessafrica.com.